HarperCollins and HarperAudio present The Hollywood Con Queen, The Hunt for an Evil Genius by Scott C. Johnson. Read by Sean Pratt. For my mother, Lee. Author's note. In the spring of 2018, I received a tip about a case of identity theft in Hollywood. An imposter was running amok around town, co-opting the identities of prominent female executives. A corporate security firm in New York, K2 Intelligence, was looking into it. At first, I didn't think the tip would amount to much. Hollywood is rife with petty scams, and I didn't expect this one to be much different. Then, I began speaking to people who had been swept up in the scam, and a very different picture started to take shape. People who had encountered the imposter described an operation that was far more elaborate and sinister than I could have imagined. In the story that resulted from that initial burst of reporting, Hunting the Con Queen of Hollywood, I recounted the hunt for an elusive criminal gang and the disturbing female impersonation at its center, operating from within a matrix of online obscurity, stealing identities from the rich and famous to bilk money from the dreamers of the world. The story included 2 short recordings of the Con Queen in action. I was inundated with messages, tips, and leads. One of those sent me on the journey of discovery that led to this book. Over the following 3 years, I interviewed hundreds of people who had come into contact with the Con Queen, from family members and childhood acquaintances to victims, private investigators, federal law enforcement officials, and lawyers. Eventually, I met the mysterious figure behind the mask. I traveled across the United States, to Europe, and eventually to Southeast Asia, tracking the Con Queen's movements and tracing the development of a fascinating and troubled criminal mind. In most cases, the dialogue that appears in this audiobook is taken directly from recordings, videos, emails, journals, and photographs from people who had direct access to the Con Queen, or from recordings of the Con Queen provided to me by victims or investigators. In a few rare instances, I have recreated dialogue based on extensive interviews with victims who were recalling events they experienced. Whenever possible, I use the real names of people I interviewed. I have offered a few individuals the mask of anonymity, providing them with an alias and noting the cover as such in the recording. I also obtained several hundred pages of court records and police investigations from California, Illinois, and Nevada, as well as the United Kingdom and Indonesia. Finally, I relied heavily on the more than 30 hours I spent talking to the Con Queen, both in person and by telephone. The research and writing of this book led me in unexpected and sometimes troubling directions as a journalist and a human being, becoming in the process an inquiry into the nature of deception. I hope you enjoy the journey of listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. Part 1. The Quarry. Nibble, nibble, where's the mouse? Who's that nibbling at my house? The Brothers Grimm, Hansel and Gretel. Chapter 1. The Drone Operator. On the afternoon it all began, on a fall day in 2017, Will Strathman stood in a field in eastern Nebraska south of Omaha. The sky was overcast. It was one of those dreary Midwestern fall days that threatened heavy rain but delivered only drizzle, when clouds trembled with gray-white fissures that wouldn't break open until they hit the Great Divide, far off to the west. Will stood underneath the canopy of a large oak tree whose leaves were beginning to turn.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?